podcast. The first part was so intense that we had to break this up into two parts while Dan found some headphones, and now we have our audio fixed.
But I think
hear me, Dan?
Yeah, and I think we made it like 11 minutes with no problems, which is pretty good as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. I think it's pretty good too. So we were talking about receivers. Now we're going to move into the trenches with the offensive line, where Mark Staten's feeling good about a lot of guys, and that's a good thing moving forward because last year was the first time, seemingly in the D'Antonio era, that they didn't have a major injury on the line where someone missed half the season, a whole season. And I asked him about that, if he did anything different. He said they did. They played more guys, and if you save a guy a few series a game, that adds up toward the end of the season. And though they lose 3 starters, they slide in Travis Jackson, they slide in Donovan Clark, guys who have starting experience, and there's like I said, there's a lot of young guys. Dan, you wrote about this. What do you think about some of those young guys?
I didn't know you could do what Michigan State did last year. I thought it was like against the rules to rotate 7 or 8 offensive linemen and just keep bringing them in. But it's unbelievable that this whole preconceived notion I had my entire life of, well, you got to have 5 set, you got to get that cohesiveness, they got to gel, and you got to have your front 5. And no, it turns out you can actually play like 7 or 8 guys and rotate them in and out, and it's fine. So that was I guess a little bit of a Mythbusters type deal for Michigan State last year. But no doubt it helped them in terms of keeping guys fresh. Maybe that's, maybe it is, maybe it isn't one of the reasons that nobody got hurt. But it certainly didn't put guys in a bad situation. And now is when you really see the benefit of what happened, because you'll lose 3 starters, but you've got Travis Jackson, like you mentioned, Connor Cruz, who has played a lot. You slide Donovan Clark in there. I mean, there's just guys all over who have experience. So this is when you really see the benefit of playing that many guys, right? And it's now to the point where they can toy around with a few different things. I mean, Travis Jackson can play both guard spots. Jack Allen can play guard or center. Connor Cruz can play all 5 positions. Donovan Clark can play guard or tackle. I mean, it's just sort of this big jigsaw puzzle that they're going to find the best fit for, and that's really seems to be a new thing that's worked well so far.
This might be a question for Coach Staten, but what do you think about Clark there at right tackle? They seem to play him. He's listed at right tackle on the depth chart. He played left tackle quite a bit when Jack Conklin was in there, because they say he's more comfortable at left, but Conklin's got that locked down. Do you think a guy like Cody Keeler comes up there on the right tackle spot? Even Clark's a guy a lot of people have thought could move inside to play guard with the way he's built too. I don't know. What do you think about where Clark fits on this line?
I think he fits, wherever they need him, and they've got a lot of guys like that, which is big. Clark, maybe more of a prototypical guard than a tackle, but he can certainly play tackle. It's not like he has a problem there, and it's kind of like the situation at linebacker right now with them working Taiwan Jones in the middle, Darian Harris outside, just kind of seeing what fits. And that's what they're going to have the chance to do on the offensive line. I think Connor Cruz is a guy who could play guard or tackle at 325 pounds now. In terms of Donovan Clark, I don't know where he ultimately projects. I do think he projects in the starting lineup. And I think right now, Jacksonville State, I would predict him to be the guy at right tackle with Connor Cruz at that right guard spot, and then Cody Keeler filling in early on. I mean, a couple of series, sort of the way they rotate on the defensive line, and then they'll kind of see what works best. But it's a nice situation, and it's something that Staten should be proud of, the way he's got 4 or 5 guys that can really play both guard and tackle. That's kind of rare.
Brian Allen's a guy you don't get many offensive linemen starting as freshmen because they're not physically ready. But Brian Allen's a guy who a lot of people talked about at Media Day as a guy who could contribute this year. Is that the vibe you also got?
I did, and normally I am not proponent of playing true freshmen anywhere if you don't have to, let alone on the offensive line where it's a tough adjustment. I just think Brian's good enough to do it, and you've got to look down the road here a little bit. Next year, you lose Travis Jackson, you lose Connor Cruz, so those are two guys that you're looking at as your starting guards right now. And I think Brian Allen right now is the guy they're looking at to fill one of those guard spots in 2015, and then eventually take over as the starting center once his older brother Jack leaves in a couple of years here. So I do think they want to get his feet wet a little bit and try him out there in the rotation just to give guys a breather. And then, hey, maybe he's good enough to play just as much as Cruz or anyone else. I don't know that he's there from a technique standpoint 2 months from now. I just know that he is a great physical talent. He's one of the most heralded offensive linemen I think Michigan State has ever recruited, going back to Skylar Schaffner, David, what was it, David Barrett? Is that right?
Yeah, Barron out of Iowa.
Barrett, yeah, that'd be a great "Where Are They Now" for David Barrett. But,
yeah, well, I put together last year. I put together a list of all the just career-ending, season-ending injuries that this offensive line has gone through. You got him, you got Henry Conway, you got
Michael Dennis,
you got Birkland twice, you got
Yep.
Finoti with the foot. Different situation, but Arthur Ray, being diagnosed with cancer, and obviously that threatened his life and is more important than anything. But it's a line that I was talking about has just never been healthy, and the fact that everybody was healthy last year, I think, went a long way, and it was very much a strength of the team. It sounds like it's going to be a strength again, based on the numbers and based on the experience. So we're going to move on to the defensive side of the ball here, which is where MSU gets all the headlines. Harlan Barnett told me that more than 300 coaches visited East Lansing in the offseason in March, actually before spring ball, because they just wanted to learn about this defense. It was number one defense in the country, winning the Big Ten, win the Rose Bowl. Narduzzi wins the Broyles Award. And they said the calls were coming in so many. Mike Trussell said they came up with an idea. Okay, well, let's set 2 days. Here's one for high school coaches. Here's one for college coaches. So when people call, tell them here are their options. And then those coaches then go tell other coaches, hey, if you want to go to Michigan State, come on this day. So they got more than 300 people coming in. Trussell said previous high was probably a quarter of that number, so less than 100. And Harlan Barnett was like, not to them, but he was like, we've been a top defense for 3 years in a row, but the national attention that MSU got this past season for winning the Big Ten, the Rose Bowl, did make a difference nationally. And when you're bringing in coaches to learn from you, especially high school coaches, that makes an impression if you're going to recruit any of those kids. And Barnett was saying they had coaches come all the way out from California. So very high marks for this defensive staff, 3 of which have been together all the years under D'Antonio here and even back at Cincinnati with him. But it'll be a different unit this year. They lose guys on the inside, and there's no shortage of options to replace them. But who do you think, or who does it sound like guys that are making an impression on that line on the inside to you?
All right, first of all, I'm going to get to that. But first of all, I want to ask you a question, Chris.
Yeah.
Because I feel like you're this huge Twitter personality, and people really don't know who Chris Vanini is. It's sort of like the Wizard of Oz behind the curtain, So let me ask you this. You've got a coaching staff coming in from California that you want to go out and show a good time to. Let's say you're cutting loose. You've got a couple days of vacation. Where are you going in East Lansing to have a good time with a visiting coaching staff?
That, since I'm not around East Lansing right now, that might be a better question for you. I mean, you don't want to be, you can't be, probably can't be at the Riv, you can't be at Rick's. But
well, you can be.
What do you think? Where do the adults seem? I haven't been a full-grown adult. I know you're not a full-grown adult, but in the East Lansing area, what is that to you? I know I know they'll spend a lot of time in the film room, that's for sure.
Yep.
Tressel was just raving about, when a bunch of coaches get together, they exchange ideas and they he was saying, they'd ask us questions about our defense that we hadn't considered, and so that makes us tinker what we're doing.
Sure.
But outside of the building, I don't know what. I guess I'll turn that back on you since you're the Lansing guy.
Wow, it's been double turned here. Okay, I guess I'm gonna go through a progression, just like a quarterback progresses through his reads. I'm gonna progress through the evening if I'm hosting a visitor in East Lansing. Number one, you're looking at a good burger. I think you got to go peanut barrel, whether it be the rodeo burger, the border burger, the olive burger. It's got a college feel to it. You feel like you're in a bar. It's got some local flavor. That'd be a good way to kick off the night. Next step, I guess, as we're moving west here down Albert Street, maybe a stop into B-Dubs for a quick beverage and a wings plate.
Eating a lot.
Yeah, I mean, these are college football coaches, Chris. They've got, these are. Have you seen Mark Staten recently, or what if Charlie Weiss is coming into town? You gotta be prepared. But and then from there, I think you go maybe Hopcat. That seems to be a place that
I've still not been
like. It's it's a little overpriced. And the food isn't that great. So I'm actually going to take that back. I'm not going to Hopcat. I'm just saying that seems to be a place that people do go.
And note that we're not getting any sponsorship money for these
not yet.
tips, which we should. But
I'm actually being paid from Pepinos under the table right now for that one. But I'm ending the night at the Riv. And that's because the Riv is still the best mix of people in the East Lansing bar scene. You get to a point where you just feel too awkward going to Rick's or PT's or whatever it may be, but at the Riv, there's still the guys in their polo shirts coming after golf league until 9 or 10, and it just seems like a place that's comfortable for everyone. So I'm saying start at Peanut Barrel, head to Riv, and then after hours at Tom Izzo's basement, who knows, but that's but we've gotten a little off topic here. What was the question? What was the question? Where were we?
Defensive line.
Defensive line.
I hear there was a freshman who was highly coveted who got his first impression of college ball. I hear.
Yeah, he's got an Irish last name, right? Something mixed something. Yeah. No, but Malik McDowell is physically enormous. I mean, I'm 6'3", I'm a decently large fellow, and he just absolutely towers over me. He looks the part. So far, it sounds like he has the quickness and those intangibles to really do something. Going to have to earn his way into the lineup. I mean, right now, with Damon Knox out, which is a big injury, considering that they lost both starting tackles from a year ago, right now they're looking at Joel Heath and Lawrence Thomas. And Lawrence Thomas was kind of the 2011 Malik McDowell. He was the number one player in state, sort of a can't-miss guy who somehow has missed to this point. I think injuries have certainly played a factor. But you've got those two guys right now, and then Brandon Clemens, played some of the Rose Bowl. Looks like he could be a good player. James Kittredge put on a lot of weight after he was injured throughout the 2013 season. I don't know if he's ready to come in and play at a high level again right now. But Malik McDowell, boy, it's going to be tough to keep him off the field. And I think he and Brandon Clemens, and maybe Kittredge too, I shouldn't totally put that out of the question, could help provide a big-time rush in there.
So, yeah, lots of options. True freshman Enoch Smith, David Beadle. So, yeah, there's a lot of opportunity for playing time, a lot of opportunity for some true freshmen to avoid those red shirts. Knox, they don't know how long he'll be out. I believe.
Well, they know. We don't know. They won't. They have an idea. They just won't. That's not something they disclose.
I got the impression he may not be ready for Jacksonville State. What do you think on that?
Yeah, I mean, D'Antonio was asked, will he be ready for the opener? He said, we don't know. He wouldn't even tell. He said something about Damon Knox and surgery. And I said, so did you say if he had surgery already or if he's going to have surgery? And D'Antonio said, no, I did not. That was all he would give me. So, he's just that kind of guy. He's a Tressel and Saban guy. But no, we don't know on Knox. I mean, he could be back by Jacksonville State. He could be out until Nebraska. Who the heck knows? But for right now, yeah, I mean, that's already a position of concern going into the season. And right now, they're kind of the group that's under the microscope a little bit. It'll be fun to see how they respond.
And on the outside, you've got Marcus Rush and Shalik Calhoun. Again, Rush is going into his fourth season as a starter. And all four years, he's been like the unheralded, not talked about guy in that line. 2 years opposite of William Golston, now 2 years opposite of Shalik Calhoun, two guys that are probably going to the NFL. And Rush was a converted linebacker who started as a redshirt freshman, and he's always played that role of containing the quarterback well. He's not always in there on the sacks, but part of that is because the other end is typically good at that, so it's his job to kind of try to bottle it up a little bit. He's got, I think, 40 starts in his career, 9 away from Eric Gordon's school record. So barring injury, Rush will probably have the most starts in Michigan State history, which is pretty impressive and deserves some acknowledgement and accolades there. And Calhoun's a guy who we kind of, I mean, I don't want to say we all saw him becoming a star, but Pat Narduzzi had hyped him up for a long time.
Yeah. Back
when he was on the scout team, and scoring touchdowns in the opening games is what really put him on the national map right from the get-go. But he's a guy I think we all saw success coming his way.
Sure, right, and kind of very similar to Demetrius Cooper now. I mean,
yeah.
It wouldn't surprise any of us as he racks up a bunch of sacks early on and proves to be a stud. I mean, we've heard that, and we heard about Shalik Calhoun. Going back to Marcus Rush, I'll tell you what he does. He does his job. He can be counted on 100% of the time to be in the right position. He's going to give you great run stopping, and every once in a while he'll provide some pass rush. Really gave Denard Robinson the business in that 2011 Michigan game at Spartan Stadium. That would probably be, when I think Marcus Rush, I do think of those hits against Michigan just because.
Do you think of the? Well, he injured Gardner, or he injured. Right. He injured Denard.
Yeah.
And later he sacked Gardner with a straight spin move on Taylor Lewan, which is probably the best play of his career, which is. It's a compliment. It was a hell of a play. It was a 3-man rush and just spun to the inside and beat a first-round draft guy and become a first-round draft pick. So yeah, keep going.
Yeah, well, he's just always in position. He does things the right way, and he sort of reminds me of D'Antonio. There's not a lot of flash. It's just sort of this is who he is and this is what he does, and he's very good at it. And certainly a little better caliber defensive end than they've had here in the past. So they will miss him next year, but they've got backups coming in with Demetrius Cooper, like we talked about. And then, who else could emerge out at defensive end? They don't have a ton of guys. I mean, Lawrence Thomas can go out there. I know they moved Devin Jones out.
D'Antonio was raving about LT playing inside or outside at Big Ten Media Days. With that size and speed, and McDowell can probably go out there if he's good enough. If they need some guys there, yeah.
Yeah, he's McDowell can go in or out. Lawrence Thomas is a guy that can go in or out, and they'll just kind of see how it unfolds. But they rotate guys up there all the time, and we could see more 3 front sets this year. They like that 3rd and long package. I believe it's called their Viper package.
Yeah, I remember it was back in 2010 maybe when people were wondering if they were going to go to a 3-4 because they just had so many linebackers, and they always kind of like hinted that they were like thinking about it, but I don't think it's ever really happened. I don't expect it to because their just simple base defense has always been so successful.
Yeah, that was like my entire summer. I remember was spent answering message boards posts about Michigan State going to a 3-4 defense. And Pat Narduzzi didn't exactly shut it down. You know what I mean?
No,
They were
that's
sort of like, yeah, it was sort of like, well, maybe. And I don't know. I don't know if that was just to keep, for something for opponents, or maybe they actually were thinking about it. But to me, right now, it's sort of like the Izzo zone defense. I mean, it will have elements of a 3-4, and they will incorporate packages in which there are 3 down linemen and 4 linebackers. But in terms of switching the base 4-3 that was the most successful defense in the country for most of 2013, no, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, I if anything, I would expect some inside guys to move outside before they bring in another linebacker, which is a great segue to the linebackers.
Oh, we're heating up now, man. This podcast
because
is really good.
You've got Taiwan Jones there, who's moving to the middle, so it'll be a bit of a change for him. It sounds like Darian Harris has another linebacker spot locked up, but he's an unproven guy. Taiwan Jones has always been, the number 3 guy. Now he's got to be number 1. This, to me, is maybe the biggest question mark in the entire team. And because for one, it's the middle of that defense, but it's also the Mike is typically the quarterback of that defense. And you wrote earlier this week about the competition there at outside linebacker. You want to explain that?
Yeah, basically, everyone assumes Ed Davis is the starter going into this thing. I guess, first of all, they keep switching up the names of their linebackers.
Yeah, I saw you were talking about Money. Is Money the Sam now?
Money is the Sam now. So it started as the Sam, now it's the Money, just as the Star was once the Will. But anyways, yeah, so the Money guy would be the strong side linebacker, or your typical Sam. And right now, Ed Davis figures to have it, but Riley Bullough, who... I wonder where this competition would be if Riley Bullough hadn't wasted away on offense all of last year. He's a guy who, great instincts as a linebacker. I still don't necessarily think it was the best idea to have him on offense all year, when clearly that's not where his future is on this team. But he's such a good athlete that, hey, it sounds like he's picking things up right away. And him and Ed Davis are in a real competition there for that Money spot. And so it'll be interesting to see if he can maybe push for even a couple series a game, or who knows, maybe he's better than Ed Davis, as hard as that would be to believe after what Davis did down the stretch. But that'll be interesting to see. And then the other 2 guys, Taiwan Jones and Darian Harris, sort of interchangeable. I think Darian Harris has a much better understanding of the scheme than Taiwan Jones. They've both been here the same amount of time. And Harris just seems to have picked it up better, kind of watching things from afar on the bench. But, yeah, so basically what they're doing here is interesting to me. They're saying, Taiwan Jones, you have X amount of practices to win the job. And from all accounts, he's done very well, and I expect him to win that job. But if he doesn't prove that he can handle all the responsibilities at the mic, then they say, all right, Darian Harris, you're coming inside because you know all the calls. You'll make sure the defensive linemen are in their right gap, and so on and so forth. And Taiwan Jones, we'll just put you back out at the start position where you've been successful in the past. So I think physically the staff wants to see Taiwan Jones in the middle because they like him at going over 6 foot as opposed to the smaller Harris in the middle. But if it doesn't work out schematically, they have no problem putting Harris in there. So those 2 guys will kind of be the 2 holding it down on the outside.
Yeah, Harris is really small. He's listed at 6 foot 231. And
probably a generous 6 foot.
Yeah, and previously you had a big guy like Max Bullough in there because it's a guy who's got to get in the trenches there. Even Greg Jones, at least by the end, was listed at 6'1", 240, which I know it's all being fudged, but I've always gotten the sense that Harris is a really, like you said, a smart guy who knows everything, and that's why he was fighting with Kyler Ellsworth for the job. But you just wonder if he can physically do it. And like I said, I think it's kind of Taiwan Jones' job to lose, and they want to make sure that he doesn't lose it. 2 guys two redshirt freshmen who kind of came in with some accolades are John Rechy and Shane Jones. Reschke's a guy people figured would be a middle linebacker. You still got to bulk up a bit. But Shane Jones is also listed at Mike on the depth chart, which I found a little interesting. He's a guy I think a lot of people projected outside. Did you get anything, hear anything about those guys yet this year?
Yeah, Reschke's doing really well. They're happy about Rechy. He's hitting hard, and he's really starting to understand the concepts better. I think he would have played as a true freshman last year, much like Max Bullough did when he was a true freshman. He wasn't starting, but he got in there in certain packages, played on every special team there was. And I do think, some guys wonder, and I get these questions all the time on the message board, well, why are you going to pull a guy's red shirt off if you're only going to play him on special teams and a few plays? And what I say to that is there is no way you can tell what a guy has, and there is no way someone really knows what they're made of on the field until you get in there, because it's moving at such a different speed. Those guys are bigger, they're stronger, they're faster, and it really is like being thrown into the fire. So I think it's a great move in that situation to get guys acclimated early on. Even if they're not going to make a huge impact, at least they know what they're up against, as opposed to totally moving in blind to a starting role in their first year of playing. But
and there's nothing more fast and physical than special teams.
No,
that's when you're running the fastest, hitting the hardest. That's when more players get hurt than anything else. So just that acclimation to playing in front of the big crowds, it goes a long way. And if they may not play much as a true freshman, but if it's not a position of need and they don't get redshirted, that's a statement from the staff on they see this person being a heavy contributor the next year.
Yeah, we saw that with Darian Hicks last year. I mean, he was. That's funny. I was thinking about that the other day. Like we always do this when on National Signing Day we talk about which guys are going to play, and it's never right. And
No.
you look back at last year.
Look at that defensive backfield. Who figured? That defensive backfield was very deep.
Yeah, Ezra Robinson and Calhoun and all those guys, and all of a sudden, it's not so deep anymore. And yeah, they knew what they were doing playing Hicks, because now he's a starter. Same with R.J. Shelton. I mean, no one saw him coming in. He was sort of everyone thought he was going to redshirt. And Dalton Williams.
And he moved positions.
Yeah, right, exactly. He was looked at as a running back that was going to redshirt, so you never know what's going to happen exactly. But getting back to your question, yeah, Rechy, very impressive. He's going to see the field this season, and I think they're really, really excited about the future of Mike linebacker with him. I expect him to start there beginning next year. And Shane Jones, I don't know. You look, it's strange. He's a guy that went to, a great high school. He's a Cincinnati Mauler guy, speaking of Marcus Rush, and those guys tend to do very well at the college level. They're advanced in terms of their high school coaching, but for whatever reason, Shane Jones has just kind of continued to slide in the wrong direction on the depth chart ever since he's been here. And Tressel said the other day that he has a new attitude. He wasn't happy with the effort he gave in spring ball, and so he's kind of coming out here now with an increased motor and trying a lot harder. But boy, I just don't see a spot for him this year, and really in the next year or two, I don't know what the future holds for Shane Jones. It's just sort of weird that he has seemingly regressed a little bit.
It'll be interesting to see what we get out of that whole linebacking core. I think there's questions in all three positions. And you look at Oregon in Game 2, and that's going to test everything these linebackers have and the defensive backs. So that'll be baptism by fire there for just about everybody, although I think Jacksonville State will be a good warm-up, but Oregon is obviously a whole nother level, because if you miss your gap, if you read the wrong gap, if you read the wrong read, they got 60 yards on you or something like that. And that's, I think, where MSU's biggest challenge will be in that game. So we'll move to the defensive backfield now, that lost All-American Darqueze Dennard and All-Big Ten player Isaiah Lewis. But like we mentioned, there's no shortage of talent here. Darian Hicks moves into one corner spot as a as a sophomore, and it appeared, talking to Barnett, that he's clearly the guy there, although, guys will battle, but it's a statement to him that he has that seemingly locked up. Barnett also said this was the sharpest group of incoming freshman DBs he's ever had. Guys like Monte Nicholson and Vantic, Copeland, and
Sure.
Jalen Watts Jackson. And that's the statement, because he pointed out Denard. He said, Denard was quick. Darqueze Denard, who played when he was young, he was quick, but these guys were, boom. These guys apparently get it right away. So, this is another, again, it's a loaded position, but another position where you may see some guys avoid red shirts. But even without them, you've got Cole Hoon on the one corner, Jermaine Edmondson on the other as the backups after Ezra Robinson's departure. Trey Waynes moves into that top corner spot. What do you think about the corners there?
I like the corners, even though Darian Hicks, I mean, he seriously looks like he's 12. Have you interviewed him yet?
I've not seen him, no.
Yeah, you show up for interviews and you're like, well, when are the college players getting here? I mean, it's insane. He looks like he's 12, and he's an outstanding player. He's really good, and I think that he is going to be. I mean, look, we all saw what happened when people questioned how Michigan State would deal with the loss of Johnny Adams at cornerback. Well, it turns out this Darqueze Denard guy was pretty good. Trey Waynes was pretty good, and I'm not saying that people will fill in consistently all the time, but Darian Hicks can play, and I think that he and Trey Waynes have something to prove, certainly. But I think the technique that Barnett has instilled is there. I think they know what they're doing, and I think they're confident. And, hey, they learned from Darqueze Denard every day in practice, He helped them out. They got to watch him, and that's got to count for something. And I do think, in terms of the freshmen, Nicholson, another guy who in pads certainly does not look like a cornerback. He's a big guy and can really do some things. I don't know if he plays this year because they've got depth.
Are they looking at Nicholson at corner over safety?
They're looking at him at both right now. I think long term he's probably a better fit at safety just because of his size. But I don't know. I mean, he could look at running back too. Terrence Samuel gave him a few plays to look over offensively. So that's the exciting thing when you get these guys on campus. It's sort of just like, all right, well, what are they going to be? And what you want to avoid is a situation where you're flipping them back and forth between certain positions. I mean, I think unlike, maybe a Tony Lippett or someone like that, you really want to decide right now, where is he best? Where do we need him the most? And let's just totally immerse him in that position. And then once he's got that, maybe we start to add some other elements. But I really do think right now he's got to focus on one position as a freshman.
Yeah, I mean, Harlan Barnett, he played under Nick Saban, who was a defensive backs guru. Mark D'Antonio himself is a defensive backs guru, and Barnett has proven himself to be a very good defensive backs coach. So any, the track record of the staff when it comes to defensive backs is more than proven. And as you look at the safeties, Curtis Drummond obviously has one spot. Some consider him the top safety NFL prospect in the country. And the other spot, R.J. Williamson, Jalen Powell, you figure Demetrius Cox will be in there somewhere. What are you seeing out of the other safety spot?
I think Williamson's got it locked down. I really do. He's proved he can play at this level, and he's got all the attributes. But Jalen Powell's right there, and he's a physical guy. I think he might even be a harder hitter than Williamson. Just got a little bit of catching up to do. He's only a redshirt freshman. And Demetrius Cox, you just don't know where he fits in. I mean, he's this great talent. He had all these offers. He's got incredible athletic ability. But where do you play him? Williamson's just better right now. I think he gets in there in the third and long stuff when they go to the nickel.
It sounds like he's that nickel spot that Isaiah Lewis had for a little bit.
Yeah, and he's young too. I mean, he's a sophomore. It's like that's another thing that recruiting is weird. It's like by the time they're a redshirt sophomore, they've been on campus for 3 years.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my God, why aren't they an All-American yet? But next year Drummond's gone, and then hey, maybe then Cox is a 2-year starter. So I think right now he gets a look in that nickel package and probably competes for a starting role next year.
I guess special teams are kind of the same. Sadler's the punter. He says his right knee is all good after off-season surgery. He said he just had tweaked a bunch of stuff. He said he feels as good as he's ever felt. Best shape of his life, he would have said if it was spring training.
Was he maxing out at like 185 pounds on the bench now?
He was. Somebody asked him about conditioning tests, and the specialist had one, and he said no. And it doesn't look like I do. Geiger takes over the kicking, or he's kicker again. He only missed one last year. He was perfect from outside of 40, which I think he might have been the most underrated player on this team last year.
Yeah, I mean, everyone forget. I mean, yeah, Dan Conroy just turned into a total head case his senior year. Once Aaron Bates left, his favorite holder, it just became a weird thing where he just couldn't get it done, and he didn't feel good about what was going on there. But yeah, Geiger, cold as ice, man.
I mean, even Conroy started. I mean, his first two years, he was very good kicker, and before that, Swenson, who has a bunch of records. The kicking situation, when you look at when John L. was here, compared to what it's been like since Mark D'Antonio's been here, you've got some of the best kickers in school history, and Swenson and Geiger's on pace to get there. He was one of the top-rated kickers out of college or out of high school.
Yeah, we had him ranked number 1 at 24/7.
Yeah, he was, and he backed it up. He didn't. I don't even know if he was a finalist for the Groves Award. The guy who won it, I think, was from Florida State. I think he was a freshman. But yeah, Geiger, incredible season. Now you wonder if he can keep it up and doesn't fall off like Conroy did. But Jake Hartbarger, the number 1 punter, is here, and Sadler says it pretty much gives him something to do in fall camp. Take him under his wing and teach him the ropes of all that.
It's funny. We were at practice the other day, and we're only allowed in for like 20 minutes or whatever, and then they kick us out. So all the players are out there. They're hitting each other. They're doing all sorts of drills, just sprinting around, sweating. It's like 90 degrees out. Everyone's miserable. And as I'm leaving the practice field, they're practicing outdoors, and we go into the indoor facility to leave practice. And there's Mike Sadler indoors in the nice air-conditioning building working on his coffin punts in the end zone. And I just thought, man, this guy's got it figured out. He knows what to do, and he's got the best deal out of this whole scholarship football situation. I mean, I just tip my hat to him, man. He's done a good job.
Yeah, I mean, he's a jokester, but he backs it up on and off the field. He's a master. He's going for his master's degree right now, at least according to his MSU Spartans bio. He'll go pro in something. Well, I mean, maybe he goes pro in sports, but it's hard to say that for sports.
was that the old NCAA commercial?
Yeah, go pro.
It's something other than sports.
He's a guy that if the NCAA, they should, like they did with Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, why isn't he the poster child for the NCAA?
Yeah. But yeah, and we'll see what kind of fakes he has. I asked him how big his playbook is, and he said it fits on a sticky note. I said, even with all the trick plays, he goes, yeah, we figure those out later. So I'm sure there'll be some. He'll probably have some runs in there. Was it two he had last year? Iowa and Nebraska?
Yeah, he had the Hey Diddle Diddle and the Charlie Brown, right?
Yeah, and he didn't. Yeah, but fake punt against Iowa, that doesn't even count because everybody fake punts on them.
That was weird.
I remember at the time I saw a stretch of quite a few fake punts in a row had been successful against Iowa, but and Kirk Ferentz had said they weren't gonna return punts anymore because they couldn't.
They'd lost their privileges to return punts.
I don't know. It was kind of a weird deal, but and then Pepper again, the long snapper, doing his job down on punts.
Yeah, special teams are always stacked.
And MSU should probably, again, have some of the best in the country. So we're going to hold off on any sort of predictions right now. We're going to kind of get through fall camp and see how things stand. But, this has been kind of a long, if you're still with us, this has been kind of a long one because we've been doing a position-by-position breakdown. Future podcasts will not be this long nor this broad. We'll get into more specific types of stuff. But with fall camp just starting, there's not much but speculation going on. So we'll figure this out as it goes along. You guys are welcome to ask us any questions you want answered. We'll try to get to those if you like this enough. Is there anything else you want to talk about, football or not?
No, I think that covered it. I'd just like to say that if this is our first and only podcast, it's been an absolute pleasure sharing the journey with you, Chris.
And we figured out that audio thing. So if you stuck around for part 2, thank you. And also, if you haven't, sign up for VIP access as the season gets going.
You're right. We got to plug that. It's we got it free until football season over at www.247sports.michiganstate.com.
No, it's the other way around. It's michiganstate.247.
Oh, God. Okay. Well, we should do the podcast not at 11:30 p.m. the next time.
Yes, it is.
But yeah, you're absolutely right. It's www.michiganstatesports.
No, you got it wrong again.
Chris, you want to take it from here?
Just, SpartanTailgate.com, I believe, works. Or michiganstate.247. But sign up for VIP. You get a lot of stuff, all the latest recruiting stuff. You want to know who's going to be committing soon, where guys are leaning, as well as the Red Sea rumblings. You're not going to get any more in-depth information anywhere on the web or anywhere. It's always a valuable read for those of you who don't. Highly recommend it. So yeah, I guess that'll wrap up this first podcast. We got through it.
We did, and I'm going to give this one more shot. It's michiganstate.247sports.com.
Yes.
Nailed it.
So, if this is going up Friday or whatever other day, leave us feedback in the comments. Let us know what you think. Hopefully it was good. If you think what we need to do, I'm sure we can do better. I'm sure we will do better now that we have our first one underneath us. It kind of took a while to get your feet kind of going there.
It all starts here. It starts here.
Yes. Yes. This was fun. I expect it to be more fun as we go along and get to other types of topics. I don't think we'll have a song like Black Heart Gold Podcast. Sorry, you don't get to hear us sing, but we get right to the good stuff. So, again, thank you if you've been here through the whole podcast. Let us know if it's worth continuing and what we can do better. So, with that, take care, everybody.
See ya.